Vamshi, is a good time to start?
Yes, sir.
So are you sharing the screen or you want me to?
Is my screen visible now, sir?
Yes.
Yes.
Should we start today's Viiveck, with your...
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So, good evening, good afternoon, good morning from whichever part of the world you're joining for today's President series under TiE Talks, jointly hosted by TiE Hyderabad, TiE Coimbatore, and Rajasthan. Vamshi. So, very briefly about TiE Global. The genesis happens to be in 1992 in Silicon Valley, USA, when a group of successful entrepreneurs and corporate executives have come together to start this organization by name TiE, the Indus Entrepreneurs. Today, after close to 3 decades, we are in 61 cities. Each city is a chapter for us in 14 countries worldwide, and 15,000 members, impact close to 100,000 startups, students, and stakeholders from around the globe. Thanks to 3,000 plus charter members who contribute their time and their mentoring hours and efforts to support the startups in their respective cities and ecosystems. So at this point, I would like to bring Mr. Manohar Reddy Mailuri, founder and CEO of KOOH. He's a vice president of TiE Hyderabad, and he will have an announcement for all of us to hear about. Manohar Reddy, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Funny. So first of all, good evening, all of you, and welcome to this President's Talk series. First of all, thank you, Hema Garu, and thank you, Mr. Chirag Patel, for being the speakers on this webinar. And welcome to Ranjana and Dr. Ravi for joining us. And of course, all the charter members of TiE Coimbatore and TiE Rajasthan and board members. Welcome. So my job is just to speak about the biggest event that's going to happen this year from TiE Global Summit, and the TiE Hyderabad is hosting it this year. For your information, this is the biggest entrepreneurship conference that happens in the world. Okay, so we are expecting about 20,000 attendees who are primarily the startups and entrepreneurs. And then we are trying to bring in about 200 plus investors who will be listening to the pitches from the startups. We are actually bringing in at least 10 plus world-class leaders and star speakers. In fact, for your information, Satya Nadella is going to be one of the primary keynote speakers on us today. He already confirmed. For information. So, and of course, we are planning to have several hundreds of one-to-one sessions that will help entrepreneurs connect with the mentors, investors, charter members, and of course the clients. Okay, and it will be, I would say, the event for entrepreneurs in terms of what they can look for, either in terms of looking for the clients or market or scaling up. You can move the slide, Funny. So you can see here. So we have already formed a global committee of almost 50 charter members and board members from across the world. And we are working pretty much on a daily basis. So please block the dates from 8th to 10th of December. In fact, you will actually start seeing these notifications and marketing materials starting probably in a week or so. And please do attend and make the best use of this opportunity to participate. And it's free for all the entrepreneurs and of course the charter members and associate members of TiE. And this is a one of a kind event. And so with that, I wanted to introduce this event and make sure that you're all familiar with this and take advantage of this opportunity. Okay? So thank you and appreciate your time. Okay.
Thank you, Manohar, for the introduction of the world's largest conference that we are planning to create in the month of December for all entrepreneurs to come and take value from. So quickly moving into the topic for today, like we called it a TiE President Series. Today we are using Zoom meeting option where all our charter members and people present in this room are all going to witness the conversation of the session. But before that, we'd request you to please keep your cameras and microphones in closed mode throughout the session, and use chat option to ask questions to speakers. What we will do is the questions will be taken up by the moderator and will be asking he will be asking the panelists. So if you have any troubles with audio or not able to follow, check the host or probably your internet connection. It's a good idea to re-log in if you will. Vamshi? So quickly about TiE Hyderabad. TiE Hyderabad is established in 99. Today, close to 20 years, we impact about uh, close to 1,200 startups every year and 6,000 plus students who are aspiring to be entrepreneurs through membership base of 400 plus startups and ably guided and mentored by 153 plus charter members in the chapter. And a lot of mentor hours are utilized every year. And these charter members, we contribute to building the ecosystem in a way that Hyderabad chapter also keeps reflecting in the Hall of Fame in the TiE Global. Almost every year, we keep consistently improving our chapter performance at a global level. Vamshi? Today in this session, we are collaborating with TiE Rajasthan and TiE Coimbatore. Both chapters have agreed and we are going to have an important topic. But we will, before going here, we'd like to introduce the speakers for today. To do that, I'd like to invite President-elect from TiE Coimbatore, Ms. Ranjana Singhal, Managing Partner at the Terra Company, the Ongo, and Totaram Incorporated, to come and introduce the President of TiE Chapter Rajasthan, Mr. Chirag Patel. Over to you, Ranjana.
Thank you. Very good evening to one and all here. Greetings from Coimbatore. It's indeed my pleasure introducing Mr. Chirag Patel, President TiE Rajasthan. Mr. Chirag Patel is a CEO of KOOH Sports, a private equity-backed startup operating in the sports and fitness space, improving health outcomes for kids by targeting schools and communities in 2 markets in the Asian subcontinent. Prior to this, he has been instrumental in the transformation of multinational IT and outsourcing companies like Serco and Intelenet as head of strategy. He has an MBA from Warwick Business School and has spent several years consulting with government agencies, telecom and internet companies in the UK. He began his early life in manufacturing sector with over a decade of experience and is a qualified with Masters in Polymer Science and Engineering from UK and Bachelors in Mechanical Engineering from India. So over to you. Wonderful introducing Mr. Chirag Patel and all the best.
Thank you, Ranjana ma'am.
Thank you, Ranjana.
Welcome, Chirag Patel.
Thank you.
And moving on, we'd like the President-elect from TiE Rajasthan chapter Dr. Ravi Mudani, founder and managing director of 121 Finance Private Limited. He is the president-elect at TiE Rajasthan. He will be introducing our next speaker, Hemalatha Annamalai, from TiE Coimbatore. She is the president at the chapter. Over to you, Dr. Ravi Mudani.
Thanks, Fani. Good evening, everyone. It's a real honor to introduce a very successful entrepreneur as Hema. She has been a pioneer into electrical vehicles. She is the founder of Ampere Vehicles, an early mover that started the India's e-vehicle revolution. She has carved a niche for herself in an innovative technology creator in the nascent Indian electric vehicle industry, contributing to the environment sustainability. Later on, the company was acquired by Compton Greaves. Rather, it's a Greaves cotton company now. Hema has been a serial entrepreneur, has spent 25 years in driving varied entrepreneurial ventures, spanning professional services, electronics, training, and automobiles, managing companies across Coimbatore and Singapore. Hema strongly promotes job creation, focusing on women empowerment. She also invests into and mentors innovative disruptive startups from smaller cities that solve societal problems. Hema is the president of TiE Coimbatore, and she is the global chair for TiE Women, a global initiative of TiE that engages, embraces, and empowers women. Welcome, Hema, to this evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Ravi Mudani, and welcome to TiE President Series, Hemalatha Annamalai. And so that's our way of integrating and connecting chapters from different cities and TiE. And also, I'd like to acknowledge the help and support by the executive directors of both the chapters, Coimbatore as well as TiE Rajasthan. They are on the call. And we'll also like to acknowledge and welcome all the TiE charter members, presidents from different chapters, board members, and other entrepreneurs on the call. We'll be starting with the topic for the day. It is my honor and a privilege to introduce the moderator for today, Mr. Viiveck Verma. He is the board of directors on TiE Hyderabad board. Viiveck Verma is a corporate honcho who has built many entrepreneurial initiatives within corporate such as Carvey, Galileo, IBM, DHL, BPL Mobile, Srinivasa Farms, and today he runs his own enterprise called Upsurge Global Enterprise. He's the founder there. He also serves his time as a senior advisor on Telangana government's Innovation Cell, TSIC, and he co-founded a seed fund called IIT Seed Funds. That is, I think, today an AIF going really strong. And he's the next director on Hyderabad Angels, on the Hyderabad Angels, which is an angel network group. And he is most importantly curator and a licensee of TEDx Hyderabad, bringing many wonderful speakers to Hyderabad city. Besides coaching and investing, he also focuses on social causes and runs with a group of like-minded individuals, a society called Society for Advanced Human Endeavor called SAHI. With that, Mr. Viiveck, over to you, and please take it away on the topic TiE Talks President Series for the evening.
Thank you very much, Fani, and welcome Hema and Chirag. And we will spend the next hour plus talking about building brands and creating social impact, which I think both of you have been doing a wonderful job on for the last many years. So let's straight get into the conversation, and I would like to start with with you, Hema, and I'd like to start with let's get the elephant in the room out, and let's get started by kind of asking you this question, which might be on many people's mind. What's a lady doing in the automobile world? Because the automobile world today is considered to be a man's world. And so I want to start by asking you, what are you doing here? Is entrepreneurship gender based, or is entrepreneurship gender neutral?
Thank you for asking this. I think from my experience, men or women doesn't matter, because the challenge is the same actually from my experience. But the struggle for women is even more, because I think the playing field is not leveled. So it is a struggle for women in many aspects. But in our field, I think it's 95% male dominated, and it is extremely challenging, because not only how do you say, the entire ecosystem is male dominated. Okay, your suppliers, customers, vendors, entire ecosystem. So it is quite challenging and daunting. And I still remember in our early days when we started the factory, people will come here, prospective dealers will come. Where is the sir? I said, I am the sir, please come. So it is going to be very interesting. And I think you as a woman has to position it. I think, but if you look at it, some of the leading ladies in manufacturing has already done it. Some of them have already done it. So it's nothing new. I think I personally wanted many women to come into products. Many women want to come into manufacturing, because it is just completely cool and awesome. And then, coming to your second question, of course, entrepreneurship has no gender. That's what I want to believe. And that's what, it should be ideally, but it is not the case. I mean, there are some struggles for women. It is not going to be easy. But now I think the current generation thinks very differently. The current millennials, I think they don't give a damn actually, from the way they talk and all that. For them, only maybe our generation, some cliches were there, but then now it's completely going off. So I think I am looking forward to a very forward-looking, system where it's completely a place where men and women are equal, and I think more can be done.
Fantastic. And I think you're doing a wonderful job in pioneering that and kind of setting that ground for the future generations, or even our generation. Why only future generation? Even for our generations to start looking at it very differently.
Yeah,
that brings me to you, Chirag. You have not been someone who, what would somebody call typically sports person, who typically people think that sports management companies are run by ex-sports people, and you are not one of those who comes from a high-flying sports career. So talk to us a little about what's a non-sports person doing in a sports arena now.
Right. Yeah, I think I was miserable at sports when I was growing up. I went to a school in which, if I were to just stretch my arms or touch the walls of the building, so we had no playground. That was my unfortunate part of growing up. But I think, having said that, the way I thought about sports as a sector is that I had spent many years in outsourcing. And when you're in outsourcing, you look at issues quite differently. And I was quite enthused with sports sector, not just here in India but globally, with the amount of issues and problems they have. And I think that got me ticked in, because if there's a large problem, then there's a large opportunity, and if you can take a crack at it, you can really make a huge difference as well. So I guess that was one motivator. The other was that I was looking at my own two girls growing up and my friends' kids as well at a personal level. And there are issues. There are issues around health and fitness, particularly around movement. Movement, as you will see over the next few years, is going to be the next vital, not just your blood pressure and your heart rates, but movement is going to be measured and monitored as well. So I thought, that's an interesting area to look at. The other issue which we looked at was the medical costs of not being fit, the indirect medical costs as well. I mean, India is the diabetes capital of the world. Research tells us, we see it all around us. And there are many things which sports and physical education can solve. So I guess that was another issue which I found interesting. The largest, perhaps the biggest motivator is that, when you're in your 40s, I mean, in the previous company, all of us as the team had created a very large company. We were employing more than 60, 70,000 people globally. So you come with that responsibility. And when we looked at the sports sector, we said, if you have to make it large, we can create huge employment opportunities. And very often, even now, if you see teachers and coaches across the country are at the bottom strata of the education system. So how do we uplift them by giving them proper training and skilling was something which I felt quite interesting. And I think lastly, all of us were corporate executives. We were traveling the globe, and often during dinners in the UK or in the US or Australia, people used to ask that 1.3 billion people, but why do we have poor sports outcomes? And I think there are many reasons for that. It's not a simplistic answer. Our social priorities are different. And I think those were some of those things which were drivers and motivators to say is that if a rank outsider can look at this problem without any biases, then hopefully he can get it right. It was challenging. It was very difficult. As Hema said, that, they were looking for the sir. In my case, they were looking for the sports person, and they found me, gray, frail in a corner. And it says, is he really the boss? So, so I've been through that. I've been through that as well. And, but now, here we are, and we're trying to make a change.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Fantastic. And here's meaning you exhibited the true entrepreneurial spirits. You saw an opportunity, you saw a problem, you found a solution, you found it, made it scalable, all of those elements that I think all of us look at from an entrepreneurship perspective. And
Right.
Given the fact that you talked about rank outsider, Hema, I want to come back to you. In addition to just being a lady, I think you're also a rank outsider in terms of, a high flying career with Wipro, software engineer, kind of working around the globe. What made you kind of think about leaving all of that and getting into, automobile sector? So what's the thought process around that rank outsider, from a corporate career into electric vehicles?
Yeah, I think it's a planned move because I was largely in services, Wipro, and all of my ventures, past ventures, are also in services. But I want to get into products. So that is when my husband was telling me that, Hema, why don't you look at this sector? And I didn't know what was electric vehicles firstly, okay, because I'm a software engineer and I didn't understand IC engine, internal combustion engine. So then I went in Google and I found that at that point of time in 2007, China was already then consuming almost more than 12 million electric scooters per year. So I said that, why is that, India is not consuming electric vehicles, right? So that was a thought process. That was a trigger that started. But then largely the trigger was, I want to do something new. And then both me and my husband are all entrepreneurs. I would say my husband is a born entrepreneur. I'm a made entrepreneur. I completely, got inspired by how he was solving problems. And I said that, oh, this is a very good problem to solve. So it was a kind of a corporate animal. Absolutely, I agree with that. But then the moment I became an entrepreneur very early, then it was not turning back, right? Because you kind of develop a natural taste to take, natural ability to take risks. So I, along with my family, took the risk and we plunged into it very consciously. And it was a very conscious decision to be able to solve a problem and ensure that you do that in a very, a manner that where you can actually impact the people around you. That was the main thing. And no regrets at all so far, because the journey has been absolutely challenging, because technology new, product was new, concept was new, customers didn't have an iota of experience, battery was new, people don't know how to charge. So there was a completely a new paradigm, right? So when you start something, I think a rank outsider is even better, because then you are not applying your past experiences, which sometimes is the baggage, So when you take the problem afresh, I think you are able to solve a problem in a much, much better manner, as Chirag mentioned. I completely agree with that, because you kind of, look at much creative ways, because I am either coming from a rich family who had enormous wealth, or someone who can actually offer some technology. We created everything from scratch. So absolutely, it was a very challenging journey, but enjoyable in every step.
Fantastic. And what a journey it's been, to where you brought that organization, where you could sell that off. And it isn't though the only one, but we'll come back to that in a minute.
Sure.
Chirag, again, coming back to you, you've had something which is very similar, global mergers and acquisition guy, deal making, as you mentioned, having these high powered dinners. and having high-powered meetings around the world. And then from there, you kind of come into running a sports business. So what made you make that transition? Most people will envy that kind of a job, where you're doing deal making around the world.
Yeah, so I see entrepreneurs, I mean, I can say this with hindsight. At the time, there were some choices to be made, and I'll touch upon that. But I think when you look at it hindsight, you have to be crazy, and you have to take that risk. You can make a smart choice or a foolish choice. I guess you always have to think about making a smart choice. But 2-3 things happened at the time, which were triggers really. Absolutely, deal making has a high. Anyone who's done it, it's a thrilling career. And not that I was fed up of it. I was really enjoying it. But 2-3 things happened. I mean, one is I was approaching sort of mid-40s, and I was looking to do something, bigger, larger, better. And you only get one shot, because then you have the age as a barrier against you. And I'm not being an ageist, but it requires a lot of energy. So I guess that was one big trigger. The second trigger was actually the co-founder of KOOH Sports. I think he made it very easy for me, not only to transition, but he made sure that we never lost the fun aspect of it. And I think the fun was the balance, because every time we used to go in front of the honorable principals trying to sell our wares, humiliation and accepting insults was something I got used to very early on. So when you have that support, not just of your co-founder, but of the team, that makes it a little bit easier from a transition perspective. I think having a frank chat with your family helps. So anybody who's looking to change career, please talk to your family and make them understand the risks you are taking and why. I guess those are some of those 3 things which I did, which allowed me to do that. And then, of course, you follow a logical process that, what do you bring from what you have? So, you talked about M&A, but I used M&A to the advantage in this venture. You quickly learn to evaluate business, because that's what you do in M&A. You build more with the teams. In your deal making, you have to make sure that the energy is there. So if you're building teams, I think those skill sets were very useful. The most important thing is shareholder value creation. Never forget that, because when you take public money, we often forget that it is theirs or not ours. And I think that's what M&A helped me also. And then, I talked about problem solving and selection. So I guess that's the way.
Fantastic. And you, like you rightly said, we are custodians more often of that public money or shareholder money, and we need to look at what we can do. Just continuing for a little bit more, Hema, on this rank outsider piece, I also want to touch upon one more aspect of the rank outsider. You don't belong to Coimbatore. For someone who studied in Australia, who shuttles between Singapore, India, and a few other global cities, the natural choice would have been to pick one of the metros, pick one of the global cities. Instead of that, you chose to look at starting manufacturing in a tier 2, tier 3 city, Coimbatore, and look at Ampere vehicles starting there. Talk to us a little about what went into making that choice. Why Coimbatore?
Yeah. When we decided to do it, we definitely knew that India was a very big market. So the initial choices was Chennai, Pune, or Nasik, right? But then suddenly, both me and my husband, both of us are engineers out of Coimbatore. We studied from a Coimbatore college. So we said that why not Coimbatore? So when we assessed, I thought Coimbatore was the best place because Coimbatore naturally had many entrepreneurs. Okay, it's almost similar in Hyderabad. That's a lot of family-based ventures, and then the Kongu entrepreneurial ecosystem is very different. When I say very different, it's all very the entrepreneurs here help each other. It's a very unique culture here. They help each other. It's a very symbiotic growth that I have seen here, which is very commendable. And the soil of Coimbatore is such that whoever comes here cannot fail at. So when we decided to do that, both of us unanimously decided Coimbatore, mainly because we studied there and we also want to be close to our customers. When I say close to our customers, we knew that when we researched about electric vehicles, we know that almost competing countries, compared to India, where the market was, it was only the rural and semi-urban markets that was actually consuming these products. So we did not even invest, beyond the point, we did not even want to go into cities. Even after about 5 years, even after 5 years, we didn't even have a showroom in Chennai. We didn't even focus. I think that clarity very early on was one of the success factors for us, because I think for many, many entrepreneurs, I think Chirag would agree, and I think many entrepreneurs here would agree, that staying through that focus to be able to get the viability of your product and service is so paramount, because only viability can allow you to sustain, and only viability then sustaining will allow you to scale. So these three things have to happen in a very, sequential manner. Only then you can actually stay put to the idea. So it was a very conscious decision. And I think not even once, I think I regretted. And I should also mention that TiE was also, for me is one of the enablers of this one, because I'm not association. I mean, I'm not part of any other organization. I'm not part of CI, not of Rotary, Lions, and all. There are many, many organizations. I'm not part of any, only CI, only TiE, because that itself had much more to contribute. Because every connect, every network, because I was new to Coimbatore. So I think TiE was actually part of me, and I'm so kind of, always, I get very emotional when I know about TiE Coimbatore. So that was one of the reasons also me and 4 more other people from TiE, we started the TiE chapter as well, okay, in 2010.
Fantastic. And so for most of the entrepreneurs listening to us, the 2 key things you should get from Hema's conversation here is, one is the clarity that you should have at the beginning of your venture. And the second is, if you don't have it, either come and set it up in Coimbatore or ask Hema to export some soil from Coimbatore, because that has the magic to make your startup succeed. Coming to you, Chirag, your journey hasn't been any different. Coming from a family living in East Africa, then going into UK, and then you decide to come into Jaipur. So you have had a equally kind of unexpected journey, where what most people will not look at. So again, can you talk to us a little about why Jaipur and what made you come here?
Yeah, so I think it was largely a sort of a more lifestyle choice. We moved to India in mid-2000 from the UK. And one of the things my wife and I made it very clear to ourselves that, we used to come to India 2-3 times a year because our parents, our respective parents lived here. Mm-hmm. So one of the things which we said is that if we have to move back to India, and we were contemplating this once we had 2 girls, that we would choose a smaller city. So we were very clear that Mumbai, Delhi was not an option. Bangalore, I can't speak the language for nuts at that time. So I said, that's Bangalore is not an option. So we chose it. So we had some choices. I am a Gujarati by origin. My wife is a Rajasthani from origin. And guess what? Who won? We had chosen Ahmedabad and Jaipur as 2 shortlisted cities, and she won. Some may call me hen-packed husband, but so be it. I think it's probably the best choice I've ever made. It is Jaipur, and Rajasthan is no longer the dusty hinterland which we all think about. It's an amazing place to be. I've been there now for 13, 14 years. And like Hema, for me, TiE became a family very early on in terms of networking with people and, meeting very, very good, successful entrepreneurs. And the circumstances in the 2000s were different than what they were in the last 10 years as well. So I guess it was a combination of various things which said that, let's go to Jaipur. And I think I did one thing, which sometimes, we joke about, is that I used that to my advantage. Living in Rajasthan, I used it to my advantage. It is a state, and Jaipur particularly, it's a city where son-in-laws get a lot of respect. And I was kind of the son-in-law. So I used that to my advantage. Doors used to open. I was shamelessly using my father-in-law's name when I was introducing myself in the social network. So I think that helped. And I would probably, I mean, now having lived there for so many years, I don't think there is a place which is replicable, which has got the culture and the respect all put together. And I'm so glad I made that choice, particularly in raising two girls in Jaipur. It's been the best decision of my life. Clarity is absolutely required when you make choices like that.
That's right.
Wonderful, wonderful. And that's an inspiring son-in-law story too, in addition to being an entrepreneurial story. So for some of us who are listening, that's also an important aspect in an entrepreneur's journey, that, you know, sometimes being a son-in-law or a daughter-in-law is also a good quality you should have and use, like Chirag rightly said, shamelessly use where it's required to get success. Fantastic. Coming to you, Hema, you know, again, you mentioned, you know, so passionately about Coimbatore and how it's made such a big difference. But talk to us a little about the whole concept of innovation, because you were doing something which hadn't been heard of before, and you were doing it in a place like Coimbatore. So talk to us a little about this concept many of us have, that innovation is restricted to big cities, to major metros, you know, whereas you have demonstrated that it happened in a place like Coimbatore, which one wouldn't expect. And that too about, you know, like you mentioned earlier, the kunku background that you said, you know, in women, in conservative backgrounds. So talk to us a little about that, and what impact has it had on women, particularly based on your success?
Yeah. See, innovation, I don't know. We have a very different view. Innovation is not top down in my view. It's bottom up. When I say bottom up, you have to listen to opportunities, listen to your customers, what they wanted. We actually stumbled upon 3 such opportunities, you know, in terms of how we innovate. Because I still remember in 2011-12, we had 3 problems. Government withdrew subsidy. Tamil Nadu had 16-hour power outages. And then our battery failed miserably. Okay. So ideally, any entrepreneur would say that, oh, let's close and then, you know, save losses. But we thought otherwise. We said that all this will be temporary, because I think any challenge that comes for an entrepreneur, I mean, I think it's all transient. It'll just go, you know. I don't think we should just hold on to it. And that's what happened to us, because we quickly kind of withered those challenges. But then as we kind of withered the challenges, we also realized that whatever we was trying to do, we also knew that there could be an innovation opportunity. For example, in terms of, we actually made a product, okay? In 2012, we made a product focusing on spinning mills, okay? In spinning mills, each customer would have 1 million spindles, right? And women have to actually walk across the spindles to be able to put the thread when the thread comes out of the spindle, okay? It's almost 8 to 12 kilometer walk for the men and women operating in this in the spinning mills. So we said that, how do we overcome that? Okay, in that way, I think I learned a lot actually from my husband, because he always looks at problems and then how to solve it in a very frugal manner, lean engineering methods, okay? And because you don't have cash to play with, right? So you got to innovate very frugally, number 1. And number 2 is that you got to make 1 or 2 reference customers. So we were actually, whatever we designed, we first went and got reference customers. So the product, whatever we innovated, will actually find its customer automatically, because we are actually designed with the customer in mind. So that also helped us. So this product actually, it is still used by some of the spinning mills in Dindakal. I still know that. And it was a pleasure, because the women, it's a tricycle, women will just go there and then they'll just go like a scooter and then come back. You know, they'll go stop, put a spindle and then they go back. So they'll go forward and reverse. And we had very interesting. So when I went to one of the spinning mill, the ladies were saying, ma'am, if you stand like this, I get a pain here. And they were so articulative, you know. And I was very impressed, because they were very clear in what they wanted. And then it was so cute also. There was one lady who said that don't give me a sitting, place, because if I sit sometimes I may sleep off. I mean, it was so, you know, touching and thrilling, you know, to be able to understand how. So when you actually go bottom up to innovate, that's where you actually make a product. Because electric vehicles don't very complicated technology, yeah? Because you have motor, you have controller, charger, battery and all that. So multiple technologies, one product, right? And as long as you understand the power electronics background of the electric vehicles, you are able to have a very good, the trade-off between speed, gradient, and range, right? It's just it's a 3 points that you have to connect. So we never had a problem in that in terms of innovation. We had only problem in terms of raising money, because the market was not even ready, right? Big challenge we went into, because innovative companies, most of them will go top down, and they will
Top down.
actually raise big money to innovate. We never had money to innovate, but we did bottom up innovation.
Fantastic, and that's just your humility speaking, because obviously there's a lot of things which have gone behind all of this humility that you're talking about, and obviously, the notion that for a lot of us as people who are starting their journey, that you have very beautifully articulated the importance of market research, of getting a customer and designing products, keeping a customer in mind. So fantastic insight, Hema, in that. And talking about humility, Chirag, if I was to come to you and, many may not know, but I was superbly inspired, when I look at your journey, starting off at one point of time as a porter in UK, from there to becoming a mover and shaker in the mergers and acquisition space, to today being a successful entrepreneur and now training others to become successful entrepreneurs. It's been an amazing journey. What made you what motivated you through this? For most people, that's a, true rags to riches story here. Talk to us a little about what kept you going.
Yeah. I think if I were to look back, I would probably just say one thing, that there is no substitute to hard work. So no matter what you do, you have to really work hard. Clearly, when you're working with people, I think those early days in the UK, I mean, I came from a family of, I came from a family of entrepreneurs actually, but over 3 generations, we were a family in decline. And there were a variety of issues, including issues which happened in Africa in the 60s. And therefore, my family had to leave overnight, and almost they had to rebuild their lives again. So to some extent, in my early days, I had witnessed hardship. I had learned that I can't take things for granted. So when I did my first job, so I worked as a technician. I mean, this whole porter stuff was trying to, meet ends when I was studying doing my university education. But when I first took my job in a company in the UK, I started off as a technician. And I soon realized that I think that's the best choice I made, because like how Hema said, innovation starts at the bottom. Any transformation which you do also starts at the bottom as well. And having worked, this was a very large listed company, and I was working right at the bottom of the ladder. You learn things, you know people, you understand how to get things done, etc., etc., etc. And then when you move up, what I found, when I went into mid-management, I never had an issue where I was privileged, because a lot of them, were coming from Oxford and Cambridge and were taking some senior positions in these multinationals as well. Whereas I had, sort of worked my way up as well. So there's a different respect which you get when people sort of, work their way up. But I think I was ambitious. Probably that's being a Gujarati trait. I think I was focused. I knew very early on that one day I'll be a CEO. It took me a long while to get there, but I knew that I wanted to be at the helm of affairs as well. And I got the opportunity 10 years ago as well. So I guess it's a combination of hard work, not being afraid of failures, because failure is part of life. It's easy to say it now, but particularly when you look at young folks, the fear of failure is very high, and it's our job to make sure that we take that fear of failure. And more importantly, I think in all of this, in this journey, there is seldom somebody who does it on his own. There is family. I had fantastic support from my family, my brothers, my parents, my wife and her family. So I guess I was very lucky that the bad times, was sort of taken care of in my journey.
Fantastic. It's a very, very inspirational story. And for many of us who think we are going through bad patches in our life, I think here's something to look up to, saying that, hard work and dedication will take you to, to greater heights, as Chirag has kind of demonstrated from early days in UK to where he is today. And that brings me to another important topic, Hema. As founders, as people at the helm of these businesses, quite often it's a very lonely journey, where you are kind of running this on your own. You don't know who in the organization you can talk to. And that's where I think, while Chirag very briefly talked about it, the support that we get from people around, especially our families, So I'd like to kind of hear from you a little about how that journey on the personal side was, what kind of support systems you had. You briefly did touch upon your spouse, your husband who kind of supported, but talk to us a little about that, because in the entrepreneur's journey, that's a critical piece too.
Yeah, because I think I was not as lucky as Chirag, because I moved to Coimbatore and I had none. Okay, I had to create from scratch. I don't know anybody except few of my college alumni friends. So everything I have to create from scratch, and that's even more challenging.
And not even your father-in-law, not even your father-in-law's name like Chirag had, right?
No chance, because I think my father and my father-in-law, both of them passed away very early. So it was very, very, very tough, because like I said, my father is a professor, mother is a teacher. Yeah. So I come from a very, very simple family. Okay. So absolutely, I had to create everything from scratch. And I think that's a blessing, actually. If you look at it, sometimes I find that when you don't have, I think, and you progressively build on your own, and you're not the pressure, oh, we are already like this. Oh, why should you go down? That kind of, sometimes there will be some certain situations that sometimes can block you. I personally believe for women, particularly, the family ecosystem support at home is very, very, very important. You can't be a super mom, super wife, super daughter-in-law, not possible. Yeah. So I think you have to really, first of all, talk with your spouse, with your children very, very openly. Chirag already mentioned that, and tell them that what you're doing, and then how you can kind of set the pace. I always depend on a very, very good domestic helper, and I think even if I pay a premium, I want a trustworthy one who can actually take care of my kids. Because I still remember in a meeting when I was in Delhi, my daughter used to go, "Amma, my book is not there. Where is that book?" She will only call me. She will not go to anybody. She will not go to her father or the helper, right? And women world over are like that. Women are the anchor of the home, whether you like it or not, right? It's nice like that, right? So that was one thing. And other than that, even in the industry professional side, all the ecosystem, right? Your suppliers, your investors, your mentors, your vendors, and your bankers, it's all the ecosystem that you have to create. You have no choice. I still remember, that supports ecosystem, because when 2011-12, when the subsidy was stopped abruptly, believe me, fixed costs remain, and we were selling about 300 scooters. It came down to about 50 scooters. Imagine the cash flow crisis, right? And I still remember, because every nationalized bank, the bank manager had up to 10 lakhs of limit, okay? So I will quickly go to the manager, get the 10 lakhs, find ways to get the inventory, sell it off, and then roll it over and go back to him again for the 10 lakhs. Repay and again get the same 10 lakhs. I did that for 5 times. I still remember the bank manager said, "Madam, don't you think that you're so unreasonable coming to me every time?" But he always supported me, right? Why I say is that sometimes you have to try, and you just have to keep moving on. Yeah, you have no choice. So the support system has to be important at all levels, right? And particularly for, many people ask me, Hema, is there a work-life balance? I have a very different view. I said there's nothing called work-life balance, because if you love your work and, if you enjoy your work, I mean, there's no differentiation at all, right? You just carry with you, because once that is part of you, I don't think it can be separated. I think that's the key. Yeah. So it is paramount that support systems have to be created. Particularly when you start up, you better talk with your family and all that very comfortably. And I don't think, my kids ever missed us, because whenever they need, one of us would be there for them. That's given.
Fantastic. And you had your family stand right with you, your husband,
Absolutely.
your children, and that's a fantastic thing. Now, coming to you, Chirag, with the women, it is quite often, and while I may not subscribe to it, but quite often expected that, if it's a lady, then the family has to support. But we live in a very patriarchal society. When it comes to a man, that's not typically how people expect it to be, because you're a man, and you're going to be running that. But as a man myself, I understand that that's not how it is. So can you talk to us a little about what this support system meant for you, especially being a son-in-law? What did the role your family play, your wife and your 2 girls, in terms of this entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, I would be lying if I say that it was easy. I think it was extremely tough for them. But you build coping systems, or you build coping mechanisms as you go along. So I think there is no, once again, honesty is very important.
Mm.
But you know, when I spoke to my wife about this abrupt change, according to her, at that point of time, she was thinking that I'm crazy. And you know, we've just settled. We've come back from the UK. We were here less than 10 years, and now I've made this change. And I think that inner calling was something she could understand. So that was good, and that comes through communication. And obviously, having a joint bank account helps. So that's a trick of the trade. And remember, I was deal making, so those were some things I was doing it quite easily. But the other sort of key aspect was that my job entailed a lot of travel. So I was traveling 5 days a week. Now somebody has to man up in the house, and my wife chose to do that. It was not something which I shoved her and threw her in the alley or under the bus. It was something which we decided that that's what we'll do. Otherwise, I would have not done it. I honestly would have not done it. So that was one. The second is that I still feel, and having lived now in 2 countries, I feel that for all its virtues in India, which I think is diminishing, this whole family system is something we should cherish and relish and respect. I think it is very important. I see that a lot in Jaipur, by the way, and a lot of our charter members and our associate members are still living as joint families. The benefits far outweigh the independence, trust me, particularly when you have kids or when you do crazy things like what I do as well. So I guess that's what it is. And then what you do, the coping mechanism, there are 2 ways to deal with it, I think. One is, you know, you come and you make an attempt. So you work hard and then you party hard, as they say. So you go out, you do things with them and try and make up for that lost time of 5 days and 2 days as well. So you're very disciplined with whatever you do as well. And I think your partner, irrespective of what the gender is, your partner becomes the relationship manager within the society which you live in. And I owe it completely to her that, you know, I was an unknown entity really 15 years ago in Jaipur. And now, you know, there are enough people who probably know me. And that's just, I don't want to be too famous. This is good enough. But the point here is that she's played a very important role. And I'm sure a lot of us would witness the same thing as well. That, you know, they go out of the way. I mean, for example, there are deaths in family or deaths in, you know, friend circle. Who's your representative? And, you know, she would just get up and go. I may have come from US and I'm sleeping and I'm jet lagged, but she used to never make it difficult for me because she understood what I was going through as well. So I guess that's what it is. And so like marriage, you have to make it work. You have no choice. Otherwise, please don't become an entrepreneur. Please don't.
Yeah.
That's my advice.
Fantastic advice from both of you for a lot of us as budding entrepreneurs, that it is a very important piece to kind of get this ecosystem behind you, the family support system that you have at home. So thank you. Wonderful aspect that you both brought out. Hema, if I move to another aspect that I'd like you to talk to us a little about, being a global citizen, you know, a lot of times people have a notion not just about our living and our coming to it, but the markets also being focused largely on the big consumers, the big cities, you know, whereas you chose a path where you found, customers in tier 2, tier 3 towns. And I heard you say you didn't even want to open a showroom in Chennai. You wanted to just focus on those markets.
That's right.
So what would you say to a lot of the entrepreneurs about this notion of, you know, focusing on big markets, metros, and all of that?
Yeah, see, the thing is, for us, it was very clear because when we went and analyzed the market, the electric vehicles were only suitable for rural and semi-urban markets, and of course for a short-range commute. Because that time the technology was only lead-acid battery, and lead-acid battery had a problem of 8 hours of charging. So who will want to, now we have lithium battery where you can charge for 2-3 hours and then you can actually go for a ride for 60 kilometers and come back, right? So the technology itself was very limiting. So when the technology was limiting, how much ever you spend money and build a brand, it is not going to sustain. And all the other players who actually went to Delhi, Bombay, Chennai all failed in front of our own eyes. Okay, so that was very, very clear that you got to understand the product, the limitations, and how people consume the product. Because see, you have to sell for the dream of the person, not to what they wanted, right? The person from a rural market wants the vehicle to go at 100 kilometers, or he wants the vehicle to go at 60 kilometers per hour. How do you match up to his dream, and how do you lead to building a product is what is very important. So for us, in terms of the focus on rural and semi-urban markets came very naturally because of the product constituency, number one. And then also that we found that the problem of affordable mobility was in the rural markets. You know, see, for example, our factory is in Sulur. From Sulur, if a person has to go to Kalangal, it's a 12-kilometer ride, okay? Neither they'll have a bus, nor, share autos. In the night, share autos are all very unsafe, right? So there's a lot of practical difficulties for our target groups, which are largely women, right? So we knew that this was a very, very new sector. So when we clearly started and segmenting the market, we went into focusing on senior citizens, women, children, very clearly. We never went into the, male community at all. We never wanted them as audience because they want style and speed. If they sit the product, they just want to, the vehicle has to go at, 70, 80 kilometers, and they are not our target market at all. So that clarity really helped us. And then I think a lot of credibility, help came from my husband in terms of understanding the customer segments. And then we actually, like I said, we actually trialed with most of our customers bottom up. We were very, very bold. A lot of customers used to come and then try our products. So we never know that, you can't just keep the product in the showroom and people will flock and go to showroom and buy. No, it will never happen. So instead, we just went and did lot of test drives in the initial about, 1-2 years continuously. So, and very clearly we know that the customer will come, and many people came and dissuaded me also. Hey, there's an Hema, Coimbatore and all that, people only talk, nobody will buy. Yes, of course it happened to us, because I still remember when we actually launched our product and we did a trial, and we had 2,000 people test drive a product in about 30 days. 2,000 people test drive. You know how many people bought our scooter? Zero. Zero. Okay. This is after launching the product, getting all ARA certified and all that. So it is very, very tough, because if the concept is new, you can't just go build a brand just like that. It's very, very tough actually.
So I agree, building brands is tough, but I think the key and a wonderful message that you're giving us is that no market is unimportant. Every market, as long as you can identify the customers, identify the problem area, and solve that problem for that particular target market. And, clarity, I think, is very clearly coming through at multiple places in terms of the way you went about your journey. So fantastic, Hema. Thank you for that. And Chirag, a lot of people in the conversation today and, in the entrepreneurial world quite often think about, off-beaten track like sports and are discouraged. They don't really think that that's a very good space to take. So what would your advice to people like that be? Because you chose to take an offbeat path and made a grand success out of it. And specifically about sports, what would you tell a lot of our audience today about choosing sports as an entrepreneurial future?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there are 2-3 things I would like to say. First is, look at today, just as we speak today, what's running? There's IPL happening, right? So it's happening. So they've made it happen. So kudos to them. There's the Bachelors Premier League in the UK is all happening as well. But I think what's happened in the last 10 years, see, sports was often getting confused in my mind. Once again, it was getting confused between a social must-have and it's everybody's right and therefore it should be provided. That whole entitlement concept. I go to the school and therefore they must do this. If I grow up, I should have a gym or a facility next to me. That should be the right as well. I think from that, it has learned to become aspirational. And only if it becomes aspirational, you can make it commercially viable. Because I think a lot of countries like India, across the globe, were getting confused between, is this for profit or is it not as well? Of course, it can be for profit as long as you can deliver social impact. So let's not deviate from that, but it has to be made for profit because you need to invest. We started with 5 employees in 2013. In 2019, we were about 500 people. I mean, these are new jobs which we have created. These jobs never existed. The other thing which we very often, the third thing which we often find is when we speak to parents and they said that my kids are particularly interested in a sport, but there is no career out of it. And we see a lot of drop-off rates, particularly when kids go into class 9 and 10 at the grassroots level, or when, at the amateur level. And it's our job to step in and try to make sense with the parents as well, that look at the new opportunities. There is large events happening. There is technology. There is sports technology companies which are mushrooming up across the globe. These are all new employers. If I were to tell you the amount of artificial intelligence and machine learning technology which is out there in sports is just fascinating.
Yeah.
And I believe that having spent almost 8 to 9 years, I've only just scratched the surface. There's just so much more to do as well. So it is a sector. I mean, I was working in the BPO IT services sector, and I know early days people used to think there's nothing to be done here. But 90s and 2000 we saw, right? It put India on the global map as well. So I think sports has a potential to put us even commercially, not just in terms of medals, but even commercially, because of the raw numbers and the vastness which we have as well. So I think it's a sector we've worked very hard. Today in the government of India, and if you look at the sectors and the classification as well, very often now you'll start seeing sports being called as an industry. So the early movers, the first 100 entrepreneurs or the first 1,000 entrepreneurs have contributed for us to get recognized as a sector as well. So it's early days, but I think the future is pretty bright.
Fantastic. So if any of you listening on to this conversation today are looking at choosing sports to be your entrepreneurial future, then I think you know the man to reach out to get some advice and also some inputs around the fantastic future that lies ahead. And Chirag mentioned a little bit about the profit, not for profit sector. And Hema, I'd like you to talk to us a little about, because when you were looking at Ampere or some of the other, because this isn't the only one, you've done 4 or 5 other ventures. At some point of time, I think you also transitioned from being just a pure commercial organization to somebody who is impacting people's lives, who are touching people's lives. So when did that kind of transition happen for you?
Okay. More than transition, it's transcendental. It was such a it was a spiritual enlightenment for me. With my factory workers. I would say that for the first about 1.5 years, I know that we can make this, because we quickly got into viability, and we were able to get the viability established very quickly. But then we went into a severe cash crisis, right? And then that's where we wanted to find out how we can come out of this crisis, because we wanted to sort it out. And then I still remember one night, 10 workers come to meet me in the night when I was sitting alone in the factory. And then I thought they will come and ask me a lot of questions about salary not being paid on time, that you're not paying PF on time. Because when you go into a crisis, it's a real crisis, yeah? I mean, you get problems from all over, right? So then you're trying to muddle up things and you want to sort it out. And then if you look at the lady Chitra, who still works in our factory, came and asked me one thing. She said, what is the problem with our product? You go sell, we will execute, we will deliver the product. We will work 24 hours, 24/7. And that was a kind of awakening for me. I mean, see the kind of trust they have in that leader to be able to say that you go and we will take care of you. It was like an enlightenment in that sense, where I was kind of forced to think beyond, and that is when I now said that if I'm able to sustain these jobs, imagine the kind of impact that can create. And very quickly, when that transition thought came in my mind, that the moment I focus on job creation as a matter of fact for the business, if I have to create one job, I have to sell probably 300 scooters every year. That's about it. So the moment I start to put like that, everything fell in place, number one. And number two is that we also started to engage with the community much better. We made vehicles for the differently abled. We made vehicles, 3-wheelers, to actually collect garbage. We brought dignity to the profession, right? And we focused on job creation, and of course, getting women, 30% of women workforce in that assembly line, right? And then we also brought engineers from small colleges in small towns, right? These guys will not be able to speak fluently in English. That is fine. But these are the guys who are coming from a good family background, and they will not give up that easily. These were the only 2 things that I needed. I didn't need anything else, actually. right?
Mm.
And the moment you see a willingness to learn, you kind of little bit, increase the difficulty of them to problem solve, and then they will be long term. And we did one very good technique. Actually, we used to continuously hire interns, bachelors, masters from electronics and electricals on a continuous basis. They will not even withstand the boot camp that we give for more than 1-2 months. They will automatically get redundant. The ones that want to learn will stay back, and they will become our future employees. So like that, we kind of trial and error, and then because there is no money, I can't hire a person from IIT or I have no chance. So I have to make do with what I have. And I think a lot of gems we got in that process. The first 40 people, I think it was a solid, and we had a kind of such a relationship. It was more of a family bonding, It was very, very nice. I think I still feel very indebted to the team that we built, because I think with their support only, the social impact was even more possible.
Wonderful. Wonderful journey again, and for those of us who think that making money and creating an impact in the society are mutually exclusive, here's Hema telling you that that's not true. As long as you focus it right, there's both very easily possible to coexist. And I think she's demonstrated that through the journey at Ampere. So wonderful, Hema. Thank you for giving us that insight. And as we are talking about transformation, Chirag, not just limited to sports, you're also doing through the TiE Rajasthan chapter some wonderful work with young kids. And again, not just limited to sports, because that's what you do in any case for a living, but you're also doing some wonderful work, as TiE Young Entrepreneurs Chair for Rajasthan, developing budding entrepreneurs. So to talk to us a little about that, how and why you think that is an important aspect.
Yeah, I think it was quite natural for me to get sort of affiliated to that program. But yeah, kudos to the entire TiE fraternity and the current chair, Sheenu, who works with us closely on this initiative, and of course our secretariat as well, Arun and everyone. But I guess I approach this slightly differently. See, in our ecosystem, we have a couple of taboos to cross, right? We are still perceived as a hinterland sort of chapter. Or do you have internet? Is the question I get asked very often these days. And I'll be honest, it is much better than what it is in other cities. So the kids who are coming out of these ecosystems also, I could empathize that they have these taboos to cross. Number one. Number two, I think because of the social fabric, as I mentioned, education, there's a lot of emphasis towards education. So actually, we approach TiE program in a perhaps more conventional and more traditional manner. So we said that rather than throwing in lingo at them, why don't we just apply the basic conventions or concepts of what an entrepreneurship journey is and what an entrepreneur should do if they want to do startups. Remember, these kids are all very connected, right? Irrespective of where they are. So we wanted to make sure that they don't get an impression that this is a fad, number one. Number two, I think the education format worked very well for us, I think. And if there are other chapters who feel that if we have made success, then happy to share the playbook. But the education format worked. I personally, along with a lot of my other executive team members, we actually held the classes. We were there standing with the kids and actually going there. We were not giving them advice. We were actually standing up as teachers and walking through them our more experiential way of entrepreneurship. The second is what we found and what I found, actually it's quite addictive. This TiE program is very addictive because what you learn with 70, 80 kids in front of you, you can never learn in boardrooms, and I'm telling you that I have become better, not just as an entrepreneur, but even as a person as well. So what you learn from them, that aspiration, and if we are the custodians of the markets of the future, and if we don't know what the industries of the future are, then you can't expect the kids to know, right? So therefore, I think understanding what the kids are looking at, I mean, the kind of professions they're talking about, the kind of aspirations which they have, is thoroughly mind-boggling as well. So these were some basic steps which we did, and we use our internal ecosystem as mentors and as educators to take it to wherever we are. We still have a long way to go, but it's a good start so far. Yeah, and kudos to the chair who's done a great effort so far.
Fantastic, and I couldn't agree more with you. As a co-chair for the TiE program here at Hyderabad, I went there 4 or 5 years ago as a mentor, and I got so addicted that I co-chair the program now. And if there was one thing that I really enjoy the most, it's working with those kids. So fantastic, Chirag, that what you're doing to build the ecosystem for tomorrow. And Hema, you're doing something similar, with the women. You lead the global TiE Women initiative, and that's doing some really outstanding work, especially over the last few months, where many chapters have been working to get the women entrepreneurs through a structured program of understanding, mentoring, facing the investors. So how are you kind of looking at it from a future perspective?
I mean, it is just a fantastic opportunity. I really thank TiE Global for choosing Darthi and me. Darthi is the vice chair. She's based out of New York. For us to be able to run this program globally, I think we have made enormous progress in the first year. This is our inaugural year. 25 chapters have signed up for TiE Women. We are actually embracing, engaging, empowering women from every place that we can. Okay, so main thing is outreach for us. We want outreach to as many women entrepreneurs. And very interestingly, we found that from smaller cities, the women are outstandingly beaming with confidence here. I have never seen this kind of a confidence, people trying to innovate and all that. So this is very beautiful. And we are actually right now reached out almost 3,000 entrepreneurs the first year. 25 finalists will actually go to Dubai for a finale in December, in January. And then we have 75 runners-up who will go for a rapid acceleration bootcamp in Jaipur. And even in TGS, Hyderabad, I think there is a TiE women track separately, where there are a lot of very interesting things that we are actually talking to be able to do this. Because I think now it is no more, no more gender, right? It is just that, idea matters, right? And not problem that you're trying to solve, and whether the problem has viability. That's all matters in entrepreneurship. So I think it has been very, very, good initiative of TiE Global. And I personally believe that TiE Women is a $1 trillion opportunity for TiE Global. I say this with confidence because I feel that every organization is now wanting to move to engage with more women. They want more women managers. They want more women leaders. They want more women on their boards. Right? So it's a sweeping change that's happening. And today, if TiE Women consolidate their thoughts along with the support of TiE Global, I think we'll be able to really make this a very, we wanted to, it can be a movement by itself. It will be a world movement, a national movement, to create that kind of a significant impact in terms of outreach to women entrepreneurs. And I think Smriti Irani, the minister, when we recently in one of the TiE events, beautifully, fluently, she said that, women have only 2 problems. They have to be financially adequate in terms of to be able to learn a balance sheet, learn a P&L, right? Financial literacy was one thing she said, and other things, of course, the ecosystem, the mentoring support for them. If these 2 are there, they will be able to go to any levels. So I think that I completely agree, and I thank the TiE global ecosystem. Mahavir is just a phone call away for us, and we are always so thankful for it, because I think that's how it is, and it's the men who's guiding us, and that's very interesting for us, and that's how it should be.
Fantastic. And I think I personally also believe women make better managers. So you're helping to bring those facets of the women out, and helping them with those few areas where they may need some polishing for them to kind of really go forward. I think we've had some time of some serious questions. I think, before we take some of the audience questions, let's also have some fun. So I'm really going to ask you some rapid fire questions, and I want you to just give a couple of a word or 2 words as answers, so that people get to know that Hema and Chirag are not just about serious entrepreneurs who are doing, fantastic and phenomenal businesses. There is a human side to it. So I'll start with you, Chirag. What compliments do you get the most?
I actually don't get a lot, to be honest. But whenever I do, I think
you're the son-in-law. You're the
Yeah,
son-in-law. Remember that.
yeah, even at work. But I guess I think a lot of time people have said that I can speak well or articulate well. I guess that's the compliment I get more often than not. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Hema, if you were to be stranded on an island, what will be the two things that you would want to have with you?
I will replace two things with my two people, my two girls. I think if my two girls are there, that's enough for me. They will ensure that they take care of me and we'll have a ball of a time actually.
Yeah, so you'll party on the island, huh? And
Island,
create that
absolutely,
as
absolutely.
phenomenal. Yeah, yeah. Chirag, if I was to ask you, leader or follower?
I think it's both. It's contextual.
Can't be politically correct.
Exactly. Exactly. No, but I'm a deal maker, so I know when to be a leader or a follower. It's very contextual. But yeah, I think there is nothing wrong with following something if you genuinely believe that that's the right thing to do. But I think following will eventually lead to leadership. And if you have to be a leader, you need to have followers. So I think it's complementary. I think it's not an either or.
Fantastic. So Hema, while we saw you as being a very jovial person, but do you remember when was the last time you really laughed very loud?
very couple of weeks ago, I was on a serious phone call with my one of our customers, right? And my daughter, my second one, she's very naughty. She comes, dresses like Katappa of Bahubali, and then takes my right foot and keeps on her head. And I just couldn't, I just burst out laughing. The other person on the phone don't know why I was laughing. And sometimes the pranks that the children do, it's such a joy to be with them.
Fantastic, and those are the joys we enjoy in our life.
Absolutely.
Chirag, what are the things that you wake up with? What's the first thing you think when you wake up in the morning?
Interesting. The reason why I wake up with no clear thoughts in the morning, particularly, is because I think about 7:30 p.m. and I enjoy my whiskey. So I think about that first, and I have enough to make sure that my head is very clear when I get up in the morning. But jokes apart, I think I get up and I think in some shape or form, I sort of thank whatever has happened in the last 24 hours, and whoever I have to thank, I'll probably thank. That's what I would probably get up. I had this habit of touching grabbing the phone first thing. I've overcome that now. I do that after 10 or 15 minutes as well. But yeah, I think I thank people in the morning in my own way.
Thinking. Yeah. Hema, if there was one thing you would want to change about yourself, what would that be?
I think I was about to say that, and Chirag said that already. Getting up in the morning and digging, putting your phone head on the phone, right? You get up morning and then you want to look at your phone. That just defeats the whole day. So I think I want to change that, and I've been doing it quite diligently, because the first morning 3 hours, if you just give it for yourself, for your other activities, I think you can be much more productive the entire day. So I think getting up and then looking at the phone is something that I would want to change permanently.
Okay, fantastic. Chirag, if I was to ask you one thing that you will never ever do.
Drugs. I'll never do drugs. Never do drugs.
That's very good, especially if you've lived your growing up years in the UK. That's a very powerful thing that you're saying. So thank you for that. And Hema, what is it that you fear the most?
I am actually claustrophobic. I fear confined and closed places. I still remember I went to a temple in Palani and there was a cave. I went inside and I just want to come back. I was feeling so confined. I can't take it.
And if I was to ask you, Chirag, you first, what is it that you have done which has been the most proud moment for you? What are you most proud of?
My two daughters. That I think it's a matter of great pride, and especially for a father, I think it's very important, and it makes you, who you are. I think I owe it to my daughters. So if that is allowed, that I've made.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm very proud of it. Very proud of being a father.
And I kind of guessed the answer already, but Hema, what about you?
For me, it's almost the same, but slightly different, because for me, welcoming a stray dog that my two daughters picked up on their way back to home from school, okay? And this was a female dog, a female puppy, abandoned. And then they brought home, and then now she's part of our family. Okay, it's been 10 years now. And I think that was a very proud moment because, just because the dogs don't talk, we think we take it for granted, but that's a life that we have to take care. So for me, in amidst all the travel and all that, the whole family went into, taking care of his pet. And then she's now called Bullet, and then she's become a bully of our home, and very, very adorable. So I think, of course, my two daughters contribute to doing it. They said, we'll clean up the poo-poo, everything, but they never did an iota of work. Everything came to me only, right? You got to do it.
And just to kind of complete the loop, that makes it the three of us, because there's one thing if I'm also very proud of. I have two girls myself,
oh, so
and,
nice.
and I would say the same, that if there's something that I am proud of is the two girls that I have. So thank you very much. That was a wonderful rapid fire. We'll take a few questions we've got from some of the people who are here today. So first to you, Chirag, there's a question about AI in sports has huge potential and many Olympic winners globally supported by technology. But in India, the adoption for technology is too low. So how do you bring about transformation in this space? This is a question for you, Chirag. Yes.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, broadly right. I think the observation is right, because the sector and these are all sort of relatively new and things are shaping. But no, I feel, and the reason why I'm excited, and there is stuff happening, and in my company we're working very diligently to solve this problem. See, if I were to take a metric that we have X million kids, close to 400 million kids, or 300 million kids in India, all school-going kids. And if you look at the number of coaching and PE staff, the ratio is abysmal. And what can we do, like in education or in healthcare? What can you do? There's brute force. We just need to produce more coaches and more teachers, or more doctors in healthcare. Or you do something else. And I think AI and ML is beginning to start making sense from a human assist perspective. So we're currently doing a pilot in 2 or 3 of our academies, where we're using AI, ML assisted technology so that we're empowering the coach. So just imagine if a coach has got 10 kids playing cricket and he's observing them in 20 minutes and then he has to give feedback. It's humanly impossible, right? So we are assisting and making sure that we are driving outcomes. These technologies are available. These technologies are indigenously made as well. It's just that it does not catch the fancy, either in the investor community or in general as well. But just wait and watch. I think you'll see in the next 2-3 years, significant transformation happening through AI, ML in sports.
Fantastic. Thank you, Chirag. And Divakar, I hope you got answers to the question that you had for Chirag. Hema, coming to you, there's a question here from Chundru Rangarao, saying that the lack of charging stations and the battery life is a very big concern for a lot of buyers of these electric vehicles. Sorry. So how should one look at that, and what is your outlook of that?
No, I don't think it's a concern at all. That's just an illusion, I would say, because see, even when the mobile phones came, right, it was only a car phone. It was so heavy, you can't even lift and talk. It was only a car phone. Only then it became very smaller, simpler in size, and more functionality came. The same thing is exactly happening with electric mobility. So today, if you look at it, lithium battery, within 4 hours, you get 80% of capacity. That's more than sufficient actually, right? And unlike lead acid battery, lithium battery, the moment you charge, you can get the full capacity very, very quickly. You don't have to complete the charging cycle. So it is very, very easy. So I believe that, charging station and all that is not required at all for electric bikes. It will just go away. It's just that there are many entrepreneurs that come to me for investments in charging stations and all that, and I don't believe that at all that will be need for India.
Fantastic. So I hope that gives you an answer, Mr. Rangarao. Coming to a slightly different question, Chirag. There's a question here saying, in case of asymmetric information, how to show the customer that you have a much better product or a service than your competition? And I'm sure you've done that, because in the space you are in, that's so maybe you want to take a shot at that question.
Yeah, so I think absolutely. So it's very, 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 very smart question, I must say. I think the only way to deal with asymmetry is not to challenge it, because it's neither right or wrong. The reason why there's an asymmetry is because it's not organized. Either the information or the sector or the market is not. Hence, it's asymmetrical. Okay, but therein lies the opportunity. So, so therefore, when you look at information, when you look at market research, my advice to everybody is, particularly the male folks over there, look at it as if you've seen a very pretty girl and you fall in love with her. That's the way you should look at market research. You should look at the data which you should fall in love with, and then use that data to your advantage. If you are data strong, and if you can articulate that, then when you speak to your customers, you come with a sense of credibility, because even they know that this information is not available. And then what are you trying to do as well? So when I look at it in my product perspective, very soon I learned in my profession, when we had B2B clients and we were knocking the doors of schools, they said that there is no room for outsourcing in sports. He says, listen, we have all these staff over here, and why would we give you this contract? Because the job is getting done. And you know, it was quite discouraging. And then when we gave them data, specific data on why that style of coaching is creating detrimental outcomes for your kids, or when I asked them to say is that, why don't you look at your schools, and if you invested X dollars per annum or X rupees per annum on reskilling and retooling your maths teacher or your science teacher, tell me, have you spent a single rupee on your PE teacher or your cricket coach? And the answer was often no. And we said, but that's the problem we're solving through data, through information as well. So you have to use asymmetry to your advantage, but you have to be very clear once again in your sales and your product propositions.
Fantastic. Hopefully, Shantanu Chaudhary, you would have got the answer that you were looking at from that. And coming to the last question for today, Hema, having been someone who's created a few businesses and kind of exited a few businesses, including Ampere Vehicles, the question that we have from Surendra Gidipalli is, what is the most acceptable method of valuing brands?
See, the thing is, it's a good question. In India, you know, if you look at brand value and content, technology content, right? In India, brand value outweighs the technology content. In Japan or other countries, the technology content outweighs. Okay, so I personally believe that the brand plays a part, and how you create the brand, the social message, the messaging behind the brand is very, very important. And I took you know, a lot of advantage. I mean, being a woman was a lot of advantage to me, I should say that here. So in terms of valuation, I would say that if you just want to go by a very plain revenue multiple, EBITDA multiple and all that, beyond a point it suffocates, you know. You have to see real money to be able to get a meaningful valuation. So that's why for us, you know, we were always growing at a very nominal pace. We don't want to just go and super duper overnight, you know, create a big bubble which is only going to burst in very less time. We never want to do that. So I would always recommend that progressively, I mean, you make a very viable business plan and achieve the business plan, focus on sales and cash flows and profitability gradually. The moment you look at the profitability and then see how you can go enhance your margin step by step, right? Once you are able to do that, the investor itself will come and say, I will give you 10x multiple, or, you know, whatever is a 20x of, you know, EBITDA, you know. So I think if you build a profitable company, that will set a stage for anything what you wanted. Otherwise, you'll only talk, you know, numbers in arbitrarily, and I don't think, you know, it will actually make, you know, a very winning proposal. You'll just make a deal, but then there's no fun in it. I don't think you'll be able to scale it. I've seen many, many companies, you know, who raised so much of money, and today they're not even able to sustain those funds, whatever they've raised.
So I think it's an, again, important aspect to keep in mind from a longer term perspective, that how do you focus on building the brands, because that's where the true valuation, and I'm sure Chirag will agree, because in a lot of the M&A deals you would have done, you know, the one part is to look at the material side of things, and the other part is to look at the whole, you know, non-tangible brand that people have built. And, you know, huge deals are largely around that rather than around the material aspects of the business. So thank you very much, Hema and Chirag. Wonderful to be in this conversation with both of you. I am just conscious of the fact that we are at 7:35. We can continue this conversation, and it will just give us so much more insights, because both of you are encyclopedias of so much knowledge that a lot of our people would benefit from. But given the time constraint, I would like to thank both of you, and also thank all the people who are here on the call. And just once again, as a member on the board of TiE Hyderabad and as a TiE member, a charter member, kind of remind you about what Manohar spoke at the beginning of the conversation today, that the TiE Global Summit is happening in Hyderabad in December. And do look out for the details that you will hear from TiE Global, from TiE Hyderabad, and from TiE Coimbatore and TiE Rajasthan too, to join us in that event. And with that, I'd like to thank both of you. And Funny, I'd like to hand it back to you for us to kind of formally close the session for today. So back to you, Funny.
Thank you so much, Viiveck. So to do the honors, I'd like to call Arun Parikh. Arun, are you on the call?
Yeah, Funny, hi.
Yeah.
Thank you, Arun. Arun is Executive Director of TiE Rajasthan.
Thanks, Funny. And I would like to thank, of course, Ms. Hemalatha Annamalai and Mr. Chirag Patel for sharing such valuable insights gathered from two totally diverse yet very similar journeys. Thank you, both the panelists. As of course, Mr. Viiveck Verma for conducting this very productive session so beautifully and bringing the best out of both of our panelists. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Arun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
I'd like to call Swati Agarwal. She's the Executive Director of TiE Coimbatore. Swati, if you're there on the call.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you, Mr. Fani. It is indeed my pleasure to thank the Vice Presidents and the President-elect who were with us today. I thank you, Mr. Manohar Reddy, Vice President, TiE Hyderabad. Thank you, Mr. Ravi Badoni, Vice President, TiE Rajasthan. And thank you, Mrs. Ranjana Singhal, President-elect, TiE Coimbatore. It's great, and you have been a loving support to all of us, and we greatly appreciate your contribution for today's event and taking time out for being here. Thanks again.
Thanks, Swati, for that. Continuing the series of President's TiE Talks, President Series, the next one up, we have two TiE presidents from Bombay chapter, Mr. Atul Nishar, who is also the founder and chairman of Ascent Overseas Education and previously Hexaware Technologies Limited, and TiE Andhra Pradesh President Mr. Satish Andhra is going to be with us, who is the Managing Director of India Partners, which is a venture capital fund, and moderating and in conversation with them will be Viiveck Verma, the board member of TiE Hyderabad and founder of Upsurge Global. He is going to talk to them on the art and science of building world-class B2B business and probably raising capital. That's a topic for 3rd of October 2020. We will surely share the links to register to all the participants of today. It's going to be a Saturday evening. Please do join us for the next one. Thank you, and stay home, stay safe, and stay connected to TiE Talks President Series. Good night, Shubhratri, and thank you for joining. Viiveck Verma and Chirag Patel, thank you for being there, and Hema ma'am.
Sure,
Arun and Swati, thanks for all the support.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Good night. Good night. Enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you, Chirag, and thank you, Hema.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks.
See you soon, all of you. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Yes.